I think in the RegTech space, there's still plenty of work to be done about integrating what compliance AML KYC teams are doing within a bigger operational framework of the firms. I think for quite too long, the regulatory-related activities were placed aside operations instead of working alongside them. So I think a lot of efforts and emphasis going forward will be placed on how various different solutions can and should be integrated within the operational context. And therefore there will be a lot of emphasis placed on the API connectivities and the data exchange between various different solutions. So I think we're going to face a lot of partnerships within the RegTech space that will again aim at improving the general way how the companies operate. Well, there's still plenty of challenges when it comes to AML KYC itself, and effective, I like the word effective being used here because many firms are implementing, they are forced to implement AML KYC procedures in the way how they operate. However, it's not necessarily effective, and I think there's quite a few problems here. The first one is that there is more and more sectors that are now falling under the AML KYC laws and regulations. The people in those businesses are not necessarily experts in the field, and very often they rely on consulting firms, they rely on the firms that specialize in the matter, those firms helping them prepare the procedures, plans. Those are very often very elaborated documents of 100 pages stored somewhere in the server in the PDF that with a set of rules that are afterwards quite difficult to follow by those firms. So I think the first challenge that those firms are facing is actually how can I translate what I should be doing into an effective program. And I think RegTech can help here by actually digitalizing a lot of different elements like AML KYC procedure that could be translated into a set of rules that firms can afterwards just follow step by step. Through that they will also achieve more consistency in the way how this is being applied. I think another challenge is actually integrating a new RegTech system within, again, the operational framework. So a lot of emphasis are being placed on the integration element, how the data can be copied, from which sources, how well I can actually exchange that data between various different systems. And yeah, I think those would be the two key elements. I think this is a general question of a technology because indeed there are new areas on how the financial crime is managing to bypass the AML KYC laws and regulations. I think one of the main challenges right now it's very much linked to the onboarding process where facial recognition technologies were used in order to allow to onboard a client without a face-to-face meetings. I think with the most recent developments of deepfake technology, this is a massive challenge on how to address that particular problem. So yes, definitely, I wouldn't say it's strictly AML KYC technology that needs to resolve that problem, but there is a serious, more general issue with that, and I would say existing general technologies should be helping on that area. Sorry, I just don't know what to add too much on that. I think on top of that, there's still plenty of things that needs to be done on the proper identification of the beneficial owners in the structures. Again, what could help here drastically is what I said earlier on. It's a larger environment of integrated tools that work side by side that could help actually properly identify and verify where the money goes to, where from the money goes to. In AML KYC processes, you need to identify the client. A part of this process requires companies to collect the information about the beneficial owners. Once you collect that information, you should be able almost straight away verify that information against official sources, replicate the structures. Certain structures could be quite elaborated. It could be a bunch of SPVs between the final, let's say, investor and the UBO. So the ability to actually reflect it, verify it within, again, single flow, within the single environment, it's something that could help prevent the frauds. This is an interesting question, which it's quite difficult to answer. Myself, I come from a financial industry. Therefore, whenever looking at various different solutions, we looked at the applicability and the real applicability of what is being offered. I think on the AI side particularly, there's still much time that needs to pass before we really find a proper use. Yes, in the big institutions where we're dealing with the big data, when there's a lot of information to be analyzed and transaction monitoring of high volumes, definitely there is already applicability for that. But if we look a bit more globally, we still are facing a huge number of firms which are of a small, medium size that are working on Microsoft Excel in their day-to-day operations. There's still plenty of efficiencies that can be gained by automating very, I would say, basic processes. Because I wouldn't like to be AI to be perceived in the similar way as a few years ago with regards to blockchain. 5 years ago, every solution had to have something to do with the blockchain. Now, if you don't have an AI word in your product, that's bad. But I think still, when it comes to a practical application, if we look at the onboarding, we're still dealing with very much OCR technologies that exist for years. If we look up into alert treatment, we're talking a bit more about machine learning, rules-based solutions. So I think that the language models, AI language models, we still need to give it a bit of time and to see how they can be effectively applied in order not to become another buzzword in the industry. Good question, because if we look particularly at compliance with the AML KYC context, there's definitely, I mean, both are very complementary to each other, because on one side, technologies can help automating first line of defense, where the initial checks and controls are being analyzed, studied, and then verified by a human who is an expert in the field, who knows better laws and regulations, and who can effectively validate various different suggestions being made by systems, being made by technology. So yeah, I think, but in order for this to be actually executed at a more massive scale, the regulation needs to follow. The regulation needs to allow actually that certain elements of the first line of defense can be done by a computer, can be done by technology, and can be afterwards validated by the human. But when it comes to alert treatments, when it comes to initial risk analysis, I think there is a sufficient space and good technology that exists to actually be able to execute that part. Oh, it's a very good initiative, particularly again for the reason I mentioned earlier on in my interview. We need to be building more integrated environment of actually solutions that actually serve the bigger picture, which is more effective operations at the end of the day. Therefore, participation in such events help us establish partnerships with companies that specialize in the different areas of the RegTech space. Cascade specializes in AML KYC, but we're seeing here companies which look more at ESG elements, DORA, everything that actually is very much linked and requires to be again properly executed within the firms. And us establishing partnerships with such firms allows us to actually offer better products, more integrated, and it's always good to also learn what's happening on the technology side, how various different firms are adopting technologies, which directions they're going. So most useful for sure.